Go ahead and begin by turning in your Old Testament to the book of Obadiah. Obadiah. We'll start there here in just a second. It's Wade Hedgepeth's fault. I call his name because you know it's not his fault. Oh yeah. That'll be up in just a second. Oh, really? There we go. Okay. You don't know this, but there is a certain sequence that you have to do all of this in. And if I ever get out of that sequence, it does not do very well. All right, there we go. Obadiah. All right, we're ready to start. Glad that you are here this evening. We're going to cover this evening the very short minor prophet of Obadiah. And this will not take us too long this evening, but did want to do as much justice to this wonderful book. And just because the book is not very long does not mean that, number one, it's not inspired by God. Well, we can even go to books such as the book of Jude, the book of Malachi. They're very short books and yet inspired all the same. And so Obadiah then is in that same vein. It is inspired by God, though it is very short in nature. Obadiah means servant of God. I saw one particular individual that said, or worshiper of God. So either one, you might have one who worships God or one who serves God. And certainly one who worships God is going to serve Him. So either way that you go, whether it's a worshiper or a servant, this man's name, Obadiah, then, is one who served God. And this particular Obadiah then served God in that he prophesied the truth to a particular nation that we'll get to here in just a moment. There are at least three other Obadiahs in Scripture. One great Obadiah was in Ahab's day, and this particular Obadiah, the prophet, as we'll see, is just a little after that particular Obadiah. So they're two different individuals. He's the one that hid the prophets in the caves. Remember that from Ahab and specifically Jezebel, really. And so this individual is different. Namely because that Obadiah was in Israel. This Obadiah is in Judah. So he's down in Jerusalem. He is a contemporary toward the end of Elisha's. Again, Elisha was the prophet of Israel in Ahab and Jezebel's day. So Obadiah came in toward the end of Elisha's prophesying days, and in the time of Elijah. We remember, of course, Elijah dealing with Naaman, the captain of the guard there in Syria. Also a contemporary with Joel. And so these individuals, whether they were known to one another or conversed with one another, are unknown, but at least they were contemporary in this way. What makes Obadiah a little bit different is that most other prophets prophesied either for or against Israel, that is the northern kingdom, or Judah, that is the southern kingdom. Obadiah is a little bit different in that he prophesied against the cousins, if you will, the Edomites. Now recall that the Edomites were from the lineage of, or the family of, Esau. And so here are our cousins because of the children of Israel. Israel, his first name was Jacob. And so you had Jacob and Esau, brethren. And so the people of Edom are the brethren of, and that's how, obviously, how the God of heaven looked at it, that the Edomites are the brethren of the Jacobites, the children of Israel. We don't call them Jacobites, do we? We call them the children of Israel, but they could be called either one of those because they came from Jacob. And so Obadiah then prophesied against Edom, because there was a situation then, actually a couple of situations, that these people did against God's people that were unwarranted. And so God was not pleased with them. And so God does not just deal with, the God of the Bible did not just deal with the children of Israel, with the Hebrews, with Christians. That's not who He only deals with. He deals with all people everywhere, because the God of the Bible is the God of the universe. He created everything, and therefore He is interested in everything and in everyone. And so when we look at the book of Obadiah, we can see, oh yes, God is interested in people other than what we might say is the Jews. The beginnings of the fulfillment, now it was not totally fulfilled, but the prophecies against Edom largely fulfilled by the king of Judah, Amaziah, in 2 Kings 16, verse 6. Now, it would not come to total fruition until later in the 1st century. In other words, there are no Edomites alive today. So all of the family of Esau is gone. No one can say, oh yeah, I'm family of Esau. No one can say that at all. Barely can say that about, and really can't, but claim that they are family of Abraham, the Hebrew people, Jews. But of Esau's family, no, not one person. And so that came about in the 1st century A.D. Now, notice 3 things in this very short book. First of all, there was judgment. Let's read the first 2 verses here, Obadiah. Notice that this is the vision given to Obadiah. Thus saith the Lord God concerning Edom. There they are. We have heard a rumor from the Lord, and an ambassador is sent among the heathen. Arise ye, and let us rise up against her in battle. Behold, I have made thee small among the heathen. Thou art greatly despised. And so God made this group of people who they were rough and rugged. They lived in the mountains there south of the Dead Sea. You can think of, now they didn't live in the caves there at Qumran where the Dead Sea Scrolls were, but it's that type of area that the Edomites, wherein they lived. And so they lived up in the mountain regions. Is there a whole lot of food in the mountains, by the way? Is there a lot of, farming going on in the mountains? No, there's not a lot of that at all. Back in September, Jennifer and I went to the Grand Canyon National Park, and tremendous area. Then we traveled over to southwest Colorado and a little place called Mesa Verde. Now, I don't know if you've ever heard of Mesa Verde. That's the green mesa, by the way, just in case, a little Spanish lingo to mix it all in. And so there were a Pueblo Indian people that lived there on Mesa Verde, and they made these wonderful houses there, kind of in the cliff face, and all those kind of things. And they had to climb down either through ropes, or they made little holes in the cliff face, to make a natural ladder, things like that. Well, as we're talking to, and the guide then is taking us through there, he said, yes, these people typically the men were only like 5 feet, 5'1", 5'2", the women under 5 feet. But every once in a while, if it was a royalty as they knew it, then they might grow to 6 feet tall. Well, the reason then, you understand, that most people only grew to about 5 feet was not because that was their genetic makeup, but because of lack of food. They did not have the food to sustain themselves, to continue to grow how they should. And so such is Edom then, because they're up in the mountains like Mesa Verde, you know. Not a whole lot of food, but they're still scrappy folk because they had the high ground. And that's what you want in a defensible position. You want the high ground. And they had that. Well, that's going to do them in. But God made them who they were. Verse 3, the pride of thine heart hath deceived thee. Thou that dwellest in the clefts of the rock, whose habitation is high, that saith in his heart, who shall bring me down to the ground? And so, just because you have the high ground does not always equal success. It does not always equal success. You go to the forts on the coastlines here in the United States. I've been to several forts, and I'm talking about forts that were built before the Civil War, during the Civil War time. Just great works and walls that are feet and feet thick, made of brick and sand. Tremendous works. And, you know, they did their job for that particular day. But they're not being used today. Do you know why? Because you can take an airplane and drop a bomb on them. It's just that simple. Because you can get higher than them. Well, guess who is above all people? You see, all humanity, we don't have the high ground, do we? Edom thought, oh, I'm up here, nobody can touch me. Oh, there's somebody that can touch you. The God of heaven can touch you. And so pride is your downfall. Their defenses, no matter how high, though they're up there with the eagles, that is not going to matter. Though thou exalt thyself as the eagle, you think you're above the clouds like that eagle? Look at your pride. And though thou set thy nest among the stars, thence will I bring thee down, saith the Lord. It's not going to matter where your habitation is. It's not going to matter where your defenses are, that I will be able to bring you down. And so God then brings a judgment against Edom. Then he brings to them justice. Go to verse 10. For thy violence against thy brother Jacob, shame shall cover thee, and thou shalt be cut off forever. There is an instance then that is not discussed in the Scriptures, how that the Arabians came in, it was about 50, 60 years earlier, before Obadiah, came into Jerusalem and sacked Jerusalem. Well, the Edomites helped the Arabians in order they might get to Jerusalem and to not take Jerusalem, but to cripple it for sure, and take away a lot of spoils and things of that nature. Well, not only that, but even before, you go back to Numbers chapter 20, we're not going to take the time to read that, but if you go back to Numbers chapter 20, when the children of Israel, they're in the wilderness wanderings, and they want to go around south there of the Dead Sea and go through their brethren's land, but they're just going through, that's all they're doing. Well, Edom said, no, you can't pass through here. And so then they had to turn around and go and find a different route. God did not forget that. He did not like the fact that as a nation with the authority to be able to do what they needed to do, that the children of Israel should have been able to go through their land and travel through their land, and there's no problem. You see, there should have been aid given because help was needed. And when you take advantage of other people, whether it is on a personal or a national level, God will not forget that. That's an injustice. And so people then, the people, will have to answer for that. Now, it might be 500 years later, It might be. But there will be a day of reckoning, not from the human standpoint, but from the standpoint of God. And so at least on 2 occasions, not only did they not help their brethren, but they even actively went against them. So they were against God's people, and so they were against God. It is said then that Obadiah is the first prophet to have this idea. I think that you can actually even go back to Genesis and see this, but that's just, what do I know? This idea that if you are not for God, then you are against God. I think that's always been the case. Whether you are Eve or Cain or whoever, that if you want to do your own thing, that is against God. But Obadiah does put it in this way. In the day that thou stoodest on the other side, in the day that the strangers carried away captive his forces, and he's mainly talking about the Arabians in that about 50, 60 years prior, and foreigners entered into his gates and cast lots upon Jerusalem, even thou wast as one of them. You see, they might not have gone in with the Arabians, but they showed them the way. They helped them. They aided them through their own land. They gave them the key to the city and opened the door up. No, they didn't walk into the gate. But you are as one of them. You see, if you are not for God, then you are against God. And as such then, because they were brethren, they had no claim to those spoils, because they shouldn't have helped the Arabians to begin with. You might call them traitors. You might call them backstabbers. They should have helped their brethren, not hurt them. Thou shouldest not have entered into the gate of my people in the day of their calamity. Yea, thou shouldest not have looked on their affliction in the day of their calamity, nor have laid hands on their substance, taken all of laid claim to the loot and the spoils of the city in the day of their calamity. You should not have done that. God looked on that instance, and he said, what you did was sinful. What you did was sinful. Now, can you imagine if I went to my brother's house there in Alabama, and I don't know whoever his enemy is. I don't think he has any. Well, I'm sure he actually probably does, but he works for the state of Alabama. What do you think? And I called someone that he probably has rubbed the wrong way. And I said, he's not going to be home at this time. Here's a key to his house. Would that be wrong of me? Yes, that would be wrong of me. That's my brother. That's sinful. And it is also sinful on a national level as well. When we enter into pacts and treaties and things of that nature, yes, I'm going to help you if something bad happens, and I'm going to protect you, and you're going to protect me, or we're going to work together. And then you hand another nation the key to get in to the storehouse? No. Again, it might take 500 years, but justice will be coming. It will come. And it did for Edom as well. And when you hold the key for someone else's demise, you are as guilty as the ones that enter into the house. That is what he is saying. And then finally, there's joy. Is it not interesting? Have you not noticed that even though you have these prophets and they're prophesying all these terrible things, how does the book end? How does it always end? You say, here's terrible people, here's terrible sins, there's a terrible situation, And then we come to this word, joy. How in the world can you come to joy in a particular situation like this? Because with man, it's not possible. But with God, all things are possible. That's how. And so God can make joy where there is no joy. God is the one that is going to cause there to be the people to be avenged. Verse 17, but upon Mount Zion, where's that? Jerusalem. Mount Zion shall be delivered. There shall be deliverance, and there shall be holiness, and the house of Jacob shall possess their possessions. What's going to happen to Edom? They're going to be destroyed. They're not going to be remembered anymore. But what about the house of Jacob? Oh, there in Zion, there's going to be holiness there. They are going to possess all manner of things. Esau then is going to cease, but Jacob is going to continue. And the house of Jacob shall be a fire. This is a consuming fire, a fire that's never going to go out. The house of Joseph a flame, and the house of Esau for stubble. Esau is going to be the wood that is burning. Not even wood, folks. This is like, like my backyard. I've got all these thorns and thorny vines and stuff. Clip those things, and I throw them in the fire pit. I don't know about what y'all do with your vines that when you touch them, without gloves, make you bleed and stuff. I don't know what you do, but I burn mine. I don't like them. They're useless. I don't want them tearing up my bags either, right? That's exactly what they would do. I burn it. That's what Esau is to God. I'm going to cause Jacob and Joseph then to burn Esau, and they shall kindle in them and devour them, and there shall not be any remaining of the house of Esau, for the Lord hath spoken it. When God speaks, what man is there that can change that judgment? Where's Esau today? I'm sorry. Where's Esau today? Where's Sidon and Tyre today? Where are the Hittites today? What about the Canaanites, the Perizzites, and the Hivites? Where are those people today? I'm waiting. Because you see, all those people, God said they shall be destroyed, never to be remembered again. I'm waiting. Where are those people? There are some people that need to wake up. Because when God says something, He means it. That's why we have the minor prophets. He said to all those nations, Hosea, remember, all those nations, you're going to be destroyed. The Philistines, where are they, by the way? The Phoenicians. Esau's going to cease, Jacob's going to remain. Oh, but get this. There's going to be a kingdom that's going to last forever. And the saviors shall come upon Mount Zion to judge the mount of Esau, and the kingdom shall be the Lord's. How long is that kingdom going to last? That's an eternal kingdom, is it not? Who is in that kingdom? Here's who's in that kingdom. The one that hears God's word, the one that believes in Jesus the Christ, the one that repents of sin, the one that confesses with the mouth that Jesus is the Christ, the Son of the living God, and the one that is baptized for the remission of sins. You see, you do those 5 things, you are part of that kingdom that will never be destroyed. Obadiah, what he had to say? You better take care of your brethren on a national level, or you're going to be destroyed. But don't worry about it. Whatever happens to you in life, because in the morning there's joy. How is that? Because Jesus the Christ is reigning in heaven, and His kingdom will never pass away. Don't you like studying these minor prophets? It's interesting, is it not? All of the prophecies against, and yet at the end, Jesus wins. If you're here this evening and you need to obey the gospel of Jesus Christ, we invite you to do that. If you have done that and you need to come back to Him, we invite you to do that as well, together, as we stand, as we sing. Who at the door is standing, patiently drawing near.